What if the Mosasaurus never went extinct? There's a giant, vicious lizard monster lurking in the ocean. It's more massive than any creature that exists today. Say hello to the modern-day Mosasaurus. This creature went extinct 66 million years ago. But if it evolved to live today, what would it be like? In this episode, we're going to look at the special traits the Mosasaurus would need in order to avoid extinction, and what kind of terrifying beast it would evolve into if it lived in the modern day. A world with modern-day Mosasaurus would change everything. Instead of just shark attacks, stories of random Mosasaurus attacks would be in the news. This ambush predator might attack unsuspecting swimmers who venture just a little too far away from shore. And it wouldn't just be the loss of a limb. No, the Mosasaurus is a deadly, opportunistic hunter that eats any prey that comes its way. It would hunt you down incredibly fast. Using a quick burst of energy, it would accelerate from 0 to 48 kilometers per hour, 30 miles per hour, in just a second. Similar to a crocodile, which can suddenly lurch into action, if you were less than 30 meters, 98 feet away from this beast, it would be on you before you could even blink. Propelling it is a super powerful tail fin, just like a shark's. But this tail fin could put the Mosasaurus in jeopardy. In today's world, just like shark fin soup, Mosasaurus tail fin soup would be a specialty dish sought after by humans who believe in traditional medicine. It wouldn't have any particular properties to make humans Superman-like, but the myth would persist. Now, given the might of the Mosasaurus, acquiring its tail fin would be a much more difficult feat. Humans could only get one if a Mosasaurus washed up dead on the shore. Hunting this creature would not be a viable option. If you were ambushed by the Mosasaurus, you'd find yourself caught in its massive double-hinged jaw. Rows of sharp teeth line every part of its mouth. These teeth aren't for chewing food. No, they're used for clamping down and holding prey in place. On that very first bite, the Mosasaurus can go right through their prey and kill it. After that, all that's left is for our modern-day Mosasaurus to swallow its victim whole. The double hinging of jaws means that they both work independently. Each time the jaw ratchets back, the prey gets pushed in several feet. A 6-foot-long sunbather? They'd be swallowed in just a couple of bites. Think you've got a chance of slipping out once you're caught by those jaws? Yeah, unfortunately, that's not the case. To prevent wriggling prey from escaping, the Mosasaurus has a third row of teeth that line the upper jaw. This is just a taste of the Mosasaurus' incredible power. Speaking of scary creatures with a mouthful of teeth, how would you like to command some of them in an epic mobile strategy game? Let me tell you about today's sponsor. This is a fast-paced, turn-based tactical strategy game set in the legendary Warhammer 40,000 universe. In Tacticus, you assemble a team of powerful champions from over 18 factions and lead them into intense skirmishes where your strategy determines the outcome. With 80-plus champions to collect, the possibilities are endless as you master your tactics and dominate the battlefield. I've been playing Tacticus, and what I love most is how the game rewards long-term strategy. It's not about rushing through. It's about setting goals, progressing each day, and steadily building an unstoppable squad. Plus, with modes like PvE campaigns, PvP battles, and guild raids, there's always a new challenge waiting. Want to give it a try? Use the QR code on the screen or the link in the comments. Use the code HALOGEN, that stands for January, not my friend Jan, HALOGEN to get 2,000 gold and 50 blackstones, available until February 1st. Now, much like starting a new game, the deadly Mosasaurus had humble beginnings. The Mosasaurus journey starts with the Aegialosaurs, a family of monitor lizards who made their way from land and back to water. These lizards were the Mosasaurus ancestors. They were much smaller, no more than 1.5 meters, 5 feet long. Over the next few million years, during the Cretaceous period, these little guys underwent a rapid evolution, an evolution that spawned about 40 different species of mosasaur. And one in particular emerged much bigger and badder. The Mosasaurus hoffmanni, commonly referred to as the Mosasaurus, was the biggest and most ferocious of these species. This creature was 9 to 15 meters, 30 to 50 feet, in length. That's even longer than the T-Rex. It lived in oceans everywhere around Earth. It would slither around with its long, streamlined body. And its legs were extremely powerful. They transformed into whale-like flippers that would help with swimming and provide stability. As the Mosasaurus evolved and became bigger, older apex predators called ichthyosaurs went extinct, allowing the Mosasaurus to become even more dominant. Over the 25 million years that Mosasaurus lived on Earth, they evolved into truly terrifying creatures. They ate sharks, dolphins, sea turtles, and any other creature they could sink their teeth into. They'd even eat their own species. Yeah, the Mosasaurus was a ruthless cannibal when the opportunity was presented. In fact, one mosasaur fossil was discovered with 3 mosasaur skulls inside of it. Today, we puny humans would be just a light snack for the Mosasaurus. To satisfy its voracious appetite, it would go after today's biggest marine animals. Whales would be a favorite, and of course, it would have no problem devouring one of its own kind. To do this, it would smash its opponent with its snout. This was a trait of one species of mosasaur, the Tylosaurus. Tylosaurus had bony growths protecting their front teeth and forming a key part of their reinforced snout. This bony snout would be a valuable trait that our modern-day Mosasaurus would likely have incorporated over multiple waves of evolution. Now, once it dealt a blow with its snout, the Mosasaurus would begin to devour any massive creature. But how did the Mosasaurus find its prey in the first place? It would smell them out. The Mosasaurus was equipped with a third nifty feature, a forked tongue that it used to smell its prey underwater. This is called chemoreception. The tongue flicks out, gathers odor molecules, and then delivers them to an organ in the mouth that detects prey. The same smelling organ was used to smell out a potential mate. Good luck to that potential mate. If it has the wrong smell, it might become dinner instead. If the Mosasaurus were alive today, humans would be in some pretty big trouble. Imagine swimming in the ocean and you had a cut seeping a tiny bit of blood into the water. Well, the Mosasaurus would smell it and snatch you up in an instant. Deep-sea diving might just stop being a thing. How could you predict when the Mosasaurus would come and get you from the depths of the ocean? Now, the Mosasaurus that lived and died 66 million years ago didn't venture into deep ocean waters. But a Mosasaurus that evolves to survive extinction? Well, that one would. To understand why, we have to go back to the catastrophe that wiped out both the dinosaurs and the Mosasaurus and see how the Mosasaurus could have evolved with different traits in order to survive. Traits that would make it particularly deadly in our modern world. Alright, let's go back to a time where something completely unexpected happened. Something that would change the course of history. An asteroid came hurtling out of the sky and crashed into the Yucatan Peninsula. An enormous crater was carved into Earth, and tsunamis rose into the air. With the heat of the crash, rocks melted, throwing tiny molten particles into the air. This came back down to Earth in the form of hot, deadly shards. Any Mosasaurus poking its head out of the shallow water would have been shredded instantly. A cloud of ash enveloping Earth caused a decade-long impact winter, killing off the majority of plants and animals. Sulfuric acid rained down on the oceans, and 90% of phytoplankton went extinct. In the oceans, the marine ecosystem collapsed. 75% of marine animals died out. This was a major problem for Mosasaurus as their food source was disappearing. But there still was some food out there, mostly in the form of new types of algae popping up. These became a food source for krill and shrimp. So could the mosasaur use these as a food source? Well, unfortunately, no. Large predators need large prey, not krill. So the mighty Mosasaurus, which had ruled the oceans for the past 25 million years, went extinct. Could there have been another way for the Mosasaurus to survive? Well, let's look at what features the sea animals who did survive had. Sharks are particularly interesting because they've lived through many different extinctions. One of the reasons sharks were able to survive this extinction is that they don't just hunt in shallow water. Sharks have the ability to navigate to different parts of the water to find food. From warm waters to the depths of the ocean. Now, being partially warm-blooded helps sharks maintain a higher internal body temperature, allowing them to survive in really cold waters. They also have the ability to move through varying depths of water, increasing their options for food. The Mosasaurus was limited to hunting mostly shallow waters. It was a pretty good swimmer, but it didn't wander too far from the shoreline. Its strength was to make a quick burst of power to make a kill, rather than taking long swims. A Mosasaurus that evolved into a more tapered body and with paddles that were more fin-like would have fared better. This Mosasaurus would have been better able to migrate to different parts of the ocean, covering the waters at a steady pace. Scientists have evidence that the Mosasaurus was already warm-blooded. This will come in handy as its new swimming prowess takes it to different parts of the ocean. Because it's warm-blooded, it can maintain its internal body temperature even in cold water. Finally, this Mosasaurus will need a swim bladder, an adaptation that will borrow from deep-sea sharks. This bladder is a gas-filled sac that it can inflate or deflate whenever it likes, allowing it to roam different depths of the ocean. Okay, are we done? Oh no. We might need one more modification. We need to move the sinuses of the Mosasaurus to be external. So, like what whales and dolphins have. This is what enables them to dive deep. With external sinuses, there's less of a chance the Mosasaurus will suffer skull damage from too much compression at the lower depths. Alright, this iteration of the Mosasaurus would have easily survived this mass extinction event. It would have swum deep out into the ocean to hunt prey like sharks. These survival mechanisms would make the Mosasaurus a terror in all parts of the oceans today. And at the same time, a nearly invincible survivor. Our modern-day Mosasaurus would be an incredibly vicious predator. But there's a second, more gentle version that could have evolved as well. To see how a second version of the Mosasaurus might have evolved, we have to go back again, this time to the Paleogene epoch, spanning 66 million to 23 million years ago. The extinction event 66 million years ago would have kicked off the first tiny change. Mosasauruses were struggling to find sufficiently large prey. Some might have been less skilled at hunting sharks, some of the largest prey available. Well, these Mosasaurus may have started to suck up smaller fish, swallowing them whole. As they evolved with this diet, there would have been less use for the 3 rows of sharp teeth they used to catch and kill larger marine animals. Maybe a subset of these Mosasaurus began to evolve into filter feeders. The first transition? Possibly be a gradual change in skull shape to be more adapted to sucking in, rather than chomping on prey. This type of evolutionary change has been seen in whales. Ancient whales had teeth, but a subset of them underwent evolutionary changes, lost their teeth and became filter feeders. Temperatures rose in what's called the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, PTM. Massive volcanic eruptions shot tons of carbon dioxide up into the air, causing temperatures to increase by about 8 degrees Celsius 14 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 14 degrees Fahrenheit. The North and South poles felt like the tropics. What would happen with our 2 different Mosasaurus species during this time? Well, first, let's look at the ferocious Mosasaurus. 2 different scenarios could play out. One possibility is that the Mosasaurus, a giant reptile that thrived in warm temperatures, would have gotten a massive boost in size. Other reptiles like crocodiles and turtles would have thrived as well. This Mosasaurus would have fed on whatever prey was available: sharks, crocs, turtles. They would have gotten larger and larger, reaching 25 to 30 meters in length. In a second scenario, our Mosasaurus might have found the temperature spike challenging. Ocean waters absorbing more carbon dioxide might have become increasingly acidic. We know a lot of marine life died off during this period. Lucky for our Mosasaurus, it was already adapted to roam in different parts of the ocean. It would have been able to swim in open waters looking for large prey, or it could swim into warmer areas to eat alligators. Okay, let's have a look at our second Mosasaurus, the gentle giant, that's also evolving at this time. Its food sources would have been changing. During the temperature spike, algae blooms appeared on the coastal waters, food for marine microorganisms like krill. The gentle giant's signature sharp teeth would have first become narrow and spiky, acting like a type of mesh. And then over time, surviving the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, they would have transformed into a sieve-like structure, enabling the Mosasaurus to feed on tiny sea creatures like plankton and krill, filtering them out from the seawater. Now, after this heating event 56 million years ago, temperatures began to cool down, but then rose to their previous levels during the Eocene optimum. But both our Mosasaurus with newly evolved traits would be experts in getting through this hot period. This would be a repeat of what each species had done before. The vicious Mosasaurus would swim the oceans, and the gentle giant would feed on the krill. Temperatures on Earth gradually declined until about 34 million years ago. Both species of Mosasaurus would have thrived, using their different survival strategies. One would have become a more ruthless killing machine. The other would have mirrored the evolution of whales, getting large eating plankton and krill. In today's world, the victims of the ruthless Mosasaurus wouldn't just be the casual swimmers and deep-sea divers. Smaller fishing boats would get attacked by groups of Mosasaurus. More about why that would be the case in a second. Because of that behavior, the safest commercial operations in the 21st century would be large fishing boats, the ones built like tanks. But even these bruisers would stay clear of the hunting grounds of these gigantic sea monsters. So what would have made the vicious Mosasaurus evolve as pack hunters? This behavior would have been created by a real evolutionary need. The fossil records of Mosasaurus from 66 million years ago don't reveal them to be social creatures. They would regularly engage in big snout fights, battling for dominance. But this nasty behavior may have led to their cooperation over time. Now, to understand why, let's go to the Neogene period, 23 million to 2.6 million years ago. During this time, the megalodon evolved, the biggest shark ever. Scarfing down 1,200 kilograms, 2,500 pounds of food a day, the Meg would have been a key rival of our Mosasaurus. Now, both the Meg and the Mosasaurus would have been competing for baleen whales, the big marine mammals of that time. Maybe in order to compete with the Meg, the Mosasaurus would have opted to be a little more friendly. Maybe instead of fighting with their own species, they would start to team up for the hunt. This need for cooperative behavior would have become solidified even more during the first part of the Quaternary period, 2.6 million years ago. Around 20 periods of glaciation came and went, greatly stressing the environment and its inhabitants. Now, during this time, the baleen whale, the bread and butter of the apex predator diet, was fighting to survive itself. Competition for food would have intensified even more. Now, both the Meg and the Mosasaurus were fundamentally solitary creatures in adulthood. Large, powerful predators usually are. But it's possible that the Mosasaurus that had begun cooperating with each other would have survived better, so this trait would have been favored in new generations. Maybe it would have been just a small pod with 2 to 3 members, but enough to cover the center, front, and rear during the kill. In this formation, the Mosasaurus can take on any mighty Megs, as well as any great white sharks. Hunting in a coordinated way and being part of a social group all require a higher degree of intelligence. Mosasaurus would have grown a bigger brain during this period. And the result of this behavioral change? The Mosasaurus would have outcompete the megalodon for food. The Meg would have gone extinct 2.6 million years ago. Maybe earlier, as it would have been fighting both the great white sharks and the newly evolved Mosasaurus for food. The Mosasaurus would have continued to reign supreme, fighting with the sharks to eat the whales. Plus, Mosasaurus pods would have targeted enormous whale sharks and blue whales, especially if they found one swimming by itself. And remember, these Mosasaurus are still cannibals, so they might even go after the gentle giant Mosasaurus that evolve. So how would the gentle giant Mosasaurus have fared during the Ice Ages? Well, it would have become even bigger. The gentle giants would have grown exceptionally big during this time, swimming thousands of kilometers to feast on the massive amount of krill and other nutrients. After the last ice age around 11,000 years ago, the modern-day mosasaur would grow massive. The oceans would be teeming with large prey for food. Whales, sharks, dolphins. Its body is adapted to roam far and wide to kill prey. So it becomes larger and larger. A huge predator of the 21st century. Okay, this is the Mosasaurus you saw at the start of this episode. 40 meters long, 130 feet, 200 tons, 441,000 pounds, the menace of the sea. In contrast, the gentle giant Mosasaurus would be found mostly in the coldest waters of the Antarctic, far, far, far away from its evil twin. Governments would debate whether to use systematic methods to kill off these modern-day mosas. But ethicists would weigh in against it, saying that it's our duty to coexist with other species. The consensus would emerge, allowing the Mosasaurus its hunting ground separate from us humans. And the two giant Mosasaurus species would be essential to keeping our modern ocean environment in balance. The vicious Mosasaurus would weed out the weak and sick large marine animals, keeping ocean populations healthy. Similar to sharks, the Mosasaurus would hunt large predators like the grouper, which in turn hunts herbivorous fish. With these populations maintained at the right levels, algae growth is kept in check and coral reefs flourish. And for our safety, as our technology improves, humans would find ways of using sonar to spot these beasts ahead of time, map out where they fish, and plot out other areas for us to hang out. Meanwhile, the fashion industry's never-ending need for lizard skin bags and clothes would result in the targeting of the gentle giant Mosasauruses. They would be hunted to near extinction. Now, as their population dwindled, whales would grow larger and take over their ecological niche. And the day of reckoning is coming because at its size, the vicious Mosasaurus would be consuming so many large marine animals, and the bigger it gets, the more it hunts. Maybe the only way to combat this creature is to pit it against a titanoboa that never went extinct. But that sounds like a story for another of my videos.